Okay, son, so I'm about to reintroduce the fret slots, and because this is being bound, we have to do this before we fret it, because we'll insert the frets into what essentially is left with the groove. Now, to do that, obviously we was discussing saws the other day in a fret saw. I set this in a jig that I've manufactured so I can cut my frets nice and square. But this is the little the guide, if you will, that gets it to the depth. Now, the depth is with your fret tang. You can see that tang there. Hope you can see it anyway. That's what actually sits inside the fret slots themselves. Now, obviously, I'll cut the fret tang off and nip them. So I'll nip the tangs off so they're actually inside where the binding will sit. But we set this guide to the depth of that using a vernier gauge. Now, because we're binding this, we can afford to go a little bit deeper. And it's just simply a case of, obviously I'll have a bit more clearance and I'll stand up, but it's just getting it in the existing slot. Now, you've got to be careful with this, so you've got to make sure you get in it. And then you just very slowly, very gently, just re-establish that fret slot. Now, I'm probably due for a new fret saw, and you've got to do this slowly so you don't widen that gap. So it's imperative that you keep it as straight as possible, if that makes sense. That's why the position it was in was not ideal. So we'll do that for all of these, and then I can bind the fretboard. So that only took a couple of minutes to reintroduce them. Quite happy with that. Why do we reintroduce them? Because there may have been a little bit of glue that's got in there when you were putting the inlays in. Could just be even a little splinter to timber, and you don't want anything in there that's going to prevent the fret from seating properly when you put it in. Kind of it lifts up, so you'll end up with a gap under your fret. And whilst, yes, you can take that down, it would look unsightly and it's not good. Another thing is, which side of the saw do you put this fence on? Personally, I don't think there's a right and a wrong way, but I like it to the right of the saw because I'm right-handed, and when it's in, I can see the slot, so I can make sure I'm in it as well. You know when you're at depth, because you no longer hear the teeth cutting. What you do is the plastic under the guide there sliding over the top of the fretboard. Now, it does leave little tiny marks. I don't know if you can see them. But what you can do is re-go over it with me sanding block. So this has only got 400 on it. And essentially what you're doing is you're just burnishing the timber early. So you're just reintroducing that shine, if you will. So you can give that a good go and get to those marks. Alternatively, I use a jumbo fret. So if you do ever go ever so slightly out, don't panic, because the fret itself will cover it. you'll see two little white marks here. They're the toothpicks I used when I was gluing the fretboard on. I drilled them in, so I made sure when I clamped it up, it wouldn't move. And even with them, the frets themselves will cover that, as you can see there. So you can get away with, not murder, but there's a little bit of a artistic license, shall we say. So next cab off the rank, I'll give this a good clean with my radius block, make sure it's nice and good, and then we'll get it bound. I'm starting that in a minute. We're ready for binding. So I get all my stuff from StewMac, just because it's a consistent colour. I've been able to get it from Australian Luthia supplies here, but I think they use a different plastic. This is based on the ABS plastics that you get at that Gibson used to use. So it's a very similar cream. You're never going to match all the creams because that's for the pickups around or to scratch plates or control panels if you're using cream on them. They're always slightly different, but that's the exact same issue that Gibson had. What I like to do is cut a little mitre because the bottom of this is going to have some binding on it as well. So there's a little mitre cut in there, and this is the one from the other side. There'll be a mitre cut in there. Now I use acetone, and I've got a little, I've not got a hypodermic, but I've got just a little thing with a little fine dropper that you get for the super glue. So it's good to go there. You'd have to watch with these though, because it actually melts. The acetone will melt. So when I'm not using them, I give them a good rinse and store them in water. I've started just getting it on when it's lined up. Now this rebate that I cut in it has it just ever so slightly proud. So because there's not a rebate here. Oh yeah, so I get this started and get it to the right depth because there's no rebate on this end because that's where the tenon is. So I match it up and start it. And then I quite simply make sure it's good. Just draw up some acetone, and using this, you can see there, I just squeeze it in. Now, basic capillary action, I can see it literally firing down the pickup grooves, the fret slots. So you don't really need a great deal. It'll get in there. It will actually wick underneath the masking tape as well. But once you start to get it on, that's when you'll start to tape it up. So you don't have to go overboard. And again, when you're putting this on, match it up, and then you pull it down so it's forcing the binding into the slot, into the rebate. And it doesn't take a great deal. And it doesn't take that long to dry either as well. Now, StewMac have this. This is what the binding comes wrapped in. It's really sticky. I wonder if anybody's got knows. I've seen them selling these little tape, not your normal sellotape, the dispensers. I've seen them selling them with what looks like this tape. I'm going to give it a whirl now, see what it's like. Seems like super sticky. I wonder if it's even. It looks to be. It's a bit stickier than masking tape, but for now, masking tape is my poison of choice. And when I put these preparatory ones on just to hold it in place, I will just that look in. Now you will get some of the I wouldn't say dye, well it is dye actually, yeah, but some of the colours from the rosewood leaching in. You can see a bit of it there, but don't worry, because it is slightly proud, you will be using a scraping blade or a razor blade to scrape that off. Okay, well I'll crack on with that, get this side done, and we'll see you in a bit. Easy as. All done. I let that side dry so I could remove the tape and switched on to the other side. Got my miters ready to go, so we'll cut that piece and slot it in. These have shot over because that's where the nut's going to go. There's a lot of tension here from when it's been wound up. So, but this acetone softens it up, pretty much melts it and binds it into the timbers. So it will stick. I've never had one fail. Some people use the glue. Some people use like a Bostik type glue, if you will. Some people use super glue, but I've had no dramas with acetone. Okay, I'll leave that sit, and then probably tomorrow I'll come back and I'll do that. Okay, it's net carving time again. And I love this part because this is where you really personalize the guitar to suit your grip, your preference, especially if you're building it for yourself. But if you're building it for somebody else, in this case I'm going to go straight with the straight off the drawings. I've got my net profiles here for both the 1st and the 12th fret. And I'll put these profiles in first. And once I've got them fitting to the right depth, I will then facet this and start to then carve the neck into the shape that it's going to be. And for you, Jonathan, you see with the facet this, it's just sort of essentially half and half and half till you get that profile. Scraper blades, spoke shave, new one for me, a Shinto net carbon rasp, different rasps, and of course a Shinto file, if you will. So we'll crack on with that. I'm not putting this on too tight because I don't want to do any damage to the fretboard. What I'll do here is I'll do similar to faceting. I'll get it around about halfway each side, and then I'll do halfway of that. So in other words, I'll put a line across there and a line in there, and then I'll take that bit off, if that makes sense. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, judging by the length of this video, I'm going to pause it there and crack on with this in the next video because it's over the 15 minutes and that's just way too long. So I'll finish up here now and I'll crack on with it on the next video. See you soon.